Welcome to another Game Analyzer, where we kick the crap out of Fuku-san for pure joy. Here we go! Now, Shenmue has a great story, and we all know that great characters make a great story, and Shenmue is no different. Now, Shenmue has a ton of characters, so keep in mind, I won't be going over favorites such as Man in a Black Suit A, or the Slot Guy. I'll be going over characters that represent messages and themes from the game. So let's get things started with someone that isn't even human. The cat, also known as Mimi, Chibi, or Tama, is a symbolic mirror to the main character Ryo. As we all know, not only did Londi kill Ryo's father, but he also killed a mother kitten, that evil bastard. This made the kitten an orphan on the same day Ryo was made an orphan. A non-family member in the form of Megumi takes the responsibility to heal and care for the little kitten. Others help out as well, including Ryo himself. Now, what does that tell the player? Well, nothing. This is actually an in-game message to Ryo. Ryo was made an orphan, and a non-family member in the form of Ine-san assumes the responsibility of Ryo. Other characters in the game also want to help Ryo heal his emotional pain, which is mirrored by the cat's broken leg. It is as if a god or some kind of mystical force is trying to tell Ryo something through the cat scenario. And how do things end up for the cat? Well, the leg heals and the cat grows strong again. When it does get healed, the cat wanders off and presumably gets lost and scared. Then it is found by Ryo himself. The cat is then returned home and presumably lives a nice life with Megumi. I believe the cat represents Ryo's dilemma, and that it's telling him that if he keeps his friends close to him, everything will be alright. Could this be his father in ghost form trying to tell his son something? Probably not. Now let's talk about Nozomi, Ryo's love interest. Basically, she, along with Ryo's other friends, is a window into whom Ryo used to be. This tells the player how much Ryo has changed and how much he's sacrificing to go on a revenge journey. If you call Nozomi frequently, you'll learn many different things about their relationship, and the effect Ryo's revenge story is having on other characters in the game. The relationship also represents a tragic, unachievable paradise. Ryo and Nozomi could never be together because they are both going on separate paths, but I have a little theory that deals with Nozomi. Throughout the game, she always hints towards Ryo that she might move to Canada. She does this because she is looking for a reaction from Ryo, but to no avail. She's telling him, make up your mind about me or I'll leave. She wants to move to Canada because just seeing Ryo breaks her heart because they cannot be together. Tom is actually more important than one may realize. In a way, Tom acts as a role model for Ryo. Ryo sees how Tom has established himself in Japan. This more than likely gives Ryo the confidence he needs to make it in Hong Kong. On top of that, Tom is high-spirited and always has the motivational skills needed to help Ryo progress. But just as Ryo has gained this confidence, he learns that Tom is going to leave back home to America. Now, I've always wondered as a kid why this departure was so important to Ryo. Tom's journey back home represents doubts that Ryo might have about leaving his home country, and that failure is a possibility. We can assume that Tom's hot dogs probably didn't do well. I guess all that dancing scared the customers away. The three blades are also an example of making it and not making it in another country. Have you ever wondered why you learn about the three blades? The entire theme leads to Ju-san, who tells you to go look for even more adventurers known as sailors, more people who travel to different countries. Now let's talk about Guizong. You probably already know that Guizong is Ryo's rival in the game. Immediately after they meet, it is already decided. There is hate and jealousy between the two of them, so much that Ryo actually agrees to beat him up just to get to Terry. Guizong does not only act as a rival, but also as a teacher. The battle with the Mad Angels teaches Ryo that sometimes he's going to have to work with people he feels competitiveness and jealousy towards. Doing so will allow him to accomplish his task at hand. Also, by doing this, you earn the respect of that person. And even though Guizong ends up not going to Hong Kong with Ryo, he still gains a powerful ally. I also need to mention Master Chen and the representation of the time frame. He runs a china shop business but is finding himself having to battle it out with the drug smugglers. I believe this represents the new generation taking over the older generation within the game. Now let's talk about this skinhead, Choi. Now people have a lot of theories about this character. Does he actually know Londi, or is he just some sick brain damaged human being? Some hypothesize that his bandages and skin tones tells us he does crystal meth, so he could be some junkie that can back up what he says. He shows the player that Ryo can grow and is the ultimate test for Ryo in this game. Choi will more than likely beat you at the arcade. Knowingly so, Ryo still faces him at the end of the game, without any help from this man right here. Other than this, Choi is basically a mystery, and can also represent the mystic nature of Landi, and the rest of the Chi human. He is well informed and does know about the mirrors, but that's all up to debate. Mark is a pretty funny character. To Ryo, he represents someone who doesn't take revenge on other people's actions. Mark's brother was presumably drowned at sea by the Mad Angels. The lunch that the Mad Angels throw into the sea is a symbolic representation of his brother. Mark's brother was killed because he leaked information about a huge dealing. So what does Mark do? He leaks information about a huge dealing. As far as teaching goes, he does teach Ryo how to drive a forklift. And he's found his way to make it on the cover of the Antiquity Tree cassette. I always found Mark funny, even though he has such a tragic story. Now let's talk about Ine-san and Fuku-san, the ones who probably care most about Ryo. As mentioned before, they are to represent Ryo's family without actually having bloodlines. There is a technique that is used to make the player think that they are his mother and his brother. The same technique is used in Lilo and Stitch, where you believe the older woman is the little girl's mother, but in fact they are sisters. Even though Fuku-san is about 25 years old, the player sees him as a little brother due to the fact that he snitches on Ryo all the time. Ine-san gives allowance as well as scolds Ryo for doing such foolish things. The disheartening thing about this relationship is that Ryo tarnishes it by going to Hong Kong, yet another sacrifice he's willing to make. By going to Hong Kong, Ryo is reminding them that they are not his family, and that his true family is dead. Which is kind of unfortunate. Now let's talk about some of the miscellaneous characters. Now this stuff you won't really find in the game itself, but actually in the strategy guide of Shenmue. You also used to be able to find it on Shenmue.com, I believe. In the strategy guide, Goro's dream is to have 10 children and start a baseball team with them. And if you ask me, that guy's a lunatic. Can you imagine that guy multiplying by 10? As you may or may not know, Akemi-san kind of has this thing with Fuku-san. This can be seen in the scene where Ryo's friends call the Yokosuka bar and tell him to come home. According to the guide, Fuku-san used to come to the Yokosuka bar more often, but due to the passing of Iwao Hazuki, Fuku-san is in non-stop training mode. Then there is Kimi Yudagawa, who ran away from home after her rich parents were going to arrange a marriage for her. She only has 2 pairs of jeans and 2 pairs of jackets, and basically lives under the manager of the Water Dragon thrift store. Then there is a slut known as Minako-san, who skips classes and assembled 10 hard-working men to do her homework for her. And do you remember Yamaguchi-san? Well, after his wife died, he began to have feelings for Ine-san. Ha! I knew my fan fiction would be realized. One of my favorite stories is the woman who owns the Man Pupu Ken Ramen, Junko Yamamoto. After she got married at a young age, her husband shortly died. The only thing he left behind was his recipe for ramen, and with that recipe, she started her own business and became successful. That's a Hollywood movie right there. And finally, the most dirtiest one is Dick Phillips. His nickname is Red-Nosed Dick. That's pretty disgusting. Now there are a ton of interesting stories with every NPC in the game, and obviously I'd be here forever if I went over them all. So if you want more stories, you can buy the strategy guide for pretty cheap. It's one of the better guides that you'll read. Well, that's all the time we have here, folks. But wait, what about Ryo? Well, to talk about him, I'd have to dig deeper into the game's story, which is what I plan to do in a future video, along with analyzing Landi and some other characters. If you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll bake you a cake. This is Game Analyzer, signing off.